Namaste and welcome to another edition of Live, Love, Engage. And I am, as always, so happy to have a guest with us. And today's guest, I'm really looking forward to. I met her recently and I was just intrigued by what she does. So let me tell you what she does. Her name is Renaye Thornborrow, and she's leading a worldwide movement to bring life coaching to kids. And since 2013, her company has certified hundreds of coaches in over 30 countries, helping them create a business they love as a life coach for kids while empowering children around the world. She's also a personal development expert, member of the ICF, International Coaching Federation, I believe what that stands for, and former 3-year board member for the Association of Coach Training Organizations. And hopefully my tongue will work a little bit better today. I seem to be tripping over myself a little bit. But anyway, yeah, I'm just delighted to welcome you today to Live, Love, Engage.
Thanks for having me, Gloria. Thrilled to be here.
I always love to start off the podcast asking our guests about what brought them to the work that they're doing today. And as I mentioned just a moment ago, we met on a publicity summit, and I was just totally intrigued by life coaching for kids. So because we hear about, especially for entrepreneurs, I'm sure many of you listening may actually be a life coach. So it's not as unusual as maybe it might have been 30 years ago. So, but doing it for kids, that struck me as a little bit unusual. So what got you into deciding to offer that type of a service and then train other coaches as well?
Yeah, Gloria, I love answering this question and be happy to share that. And it's amazing. I've been doing this for almost 12 years now and still have people all the time saying, "Oh, life coaching for kids, I didn't know there was such a thing." And it all kind of came about by accident, but the seed was planted many years ago, decades ago, actually, when I graduated from college. And Gloria, I discovered the world of personal development. And I remember thinking to myself, why didn't I learn this when I was a kid? It made no sense to me that the personal development world and then later the life coaching world focuses on grown-ups when those core thoughts and beliefs that shape who we are and what we think is possible for our lives were formed when we're really young. And I knew that I wanted my kids to one day know these powerful mindset skills. And through the years, I became an expert in personal development. I used my skills to create a very successful corporate career, happy, fulfilling marriage. And when I had children, a little over 20 years ago, my kids are 20 now, I couldn't find anything out there to help them develop these mindset skills. There was plenty on how to get my kids to behave, a few things on character development, but nothing about mindset skills. And so I started working with my kids myself when they were pretty young, 4 years old or so, 5. And sometimes it seemed a little kind of lectury or boring. And so I started kind of writing stories just informally. And then over the next couple of years, even more stories. And from there, a vision just grew, Gloria. And at the time, I was vice president of marketing for a company, loved my job, fabulous career, loved my team. But I just had this pull to bring this work to the world, to bring this to children. And when I first launched my company, I retired from a corporate job. I was fortunate enough to be able to take a year off and wrote a full curriculum. We teach 27 mindset skills to children using story-based coaching curriculum. But what happened was I launched it as a home study program for parents to use with their kids. But then I had people coming to me like life coaches and educators and counselors and therapists wanting to use my work in their businesses. And I thought, well, that's a great idea, because I knew they could reach children I would never be able to reach. And here we are, 10 years later after the certification program. And I'm just so honored we have hundreds of coaches in over 30 countries who are using this work with kids. So, it kind of came out about by accident, but I'm just so glad it is. And it's amazing. I'm so proud of our coaches and the impact that they're having with children. So that's the journey.
Well, there's so many questions that are going through my head right now, and I'm trying to figure out which one to go first. So, let's start off with simply the benefits, because you talk about mindset work with kids. So actually before even benefits, maybe just give me an example of something that you think kids aren't getting that the life coaching in regards to mindset helps them with.
Yeah, well, when faced with challenges and disappointments, most kids don't have the skills to handle them. So as a result of that, they get down on themselves. This crushes their self-confidence or their self-esteem. They give up on themselves. That crushes their self-confidence. And they're left almost paralyzed and not feeling empowered in their life. And so what mindset skills is all about is supporting children and proactively developing mindset skills for self-esteem, for confidence, resilience. And boy, have we had some things for children, all of us have gone through over the last few years as we are coming out of the pandemic. Self-leadership, learning how to set and achieve goals. And these are just, it's a missing link in children's education. It's a missing link in children's mental health, is really supporting them in developing these skills. And just an example, you asked of one skill that they're missing. One of the favorite things I love to teach is about the skill of developing positive self-talk. In fact, this is a story we give away for free on our website because we think it's so important for everybody, children and grown-ups, to learn that skill of positive self-talk. So we invite people to go to our website, get that free story, and start developing that skill, because self-talk shapes everything from our confidence to our self-esteem, our resilience, and even what we believe that we can achieve as well.
Yeah, that's for sure, because I know I still occasionally catch myself with a little bit of negative self-talk, and it's would have been nice to have learned that really consciously, being able to learn that at a younger age, to be able to have that foundation. Which brings me to my next question. So, how young do you recommend kids to be able to start, doing this type of work?
Well, our curriculum is really geared towards children between the ages of 6 through 12. So we want to get them in elementary school, middle school, before they get into the really rough stuff through high school, college, and into adult years as well. We want to support them in developing these mindset skills that they'll be able to use for the rest of their lives. With our coaches, we have coaches that come from a variety of backgrounds. Some have experience working with a little bit younger kids and even teens, and some of them will adapt the curriculum in order to support the expanded age groups on either end. But really, we're focused on ages 6 through 12, because once kids go to elementary school, that's when they start experiencing some of the things in life, such as getting a bad grade, not being invited to a birthday party, they're not getting maybe messing up in a ball game, or not getting chosen for the award or contest, and just those disappointments that we were talking about. And most kids, they don't know how to navigate those. So we really want to support them to learn how to separate events and things that happen in their lives from who they are as a person, so that they can move forward feeling empowered and use that as a learning experience from which to grow.
Wow. Have you, and it may be too soon, or I don't know if you've thought about this, but maybe tracking some of the kids like that you first started working with, 13 years ago, and see how they're doing today?
Love that question, because a lot of our coaches, we have some coaches who've been with us, for multiple years, and some have even raised their kids using Adventures in Wisdom, using our curriculum. So we haven't formally tried to track it, but we do have a few testimonials from some of our coaches who used our work with children. In fact, one of our coaches who's in Australia not too long ago shared that for her sons, who are now late teenagers, they were surprised to realize that most children don't know this way of thinking. They don't know that they can choose their thoughts, and that by choosing their thoughts, it's going to shape their experience of what's going on in their lives. And it's so natural because they were raised on it. And then, of course, my own children raised on this as well. And, they're not perfect. I'm not perfect by any means, but I'm just so proud of the young adults they are. I mean, they're both juniors in college. And when they went off to college, which was right in the middle of the pandemic, and had all these challenges to deal with, they had skills to help navigate them. Of course, we were in constant communication, but I was never worried about them. I knew that they were going to be able to navigate this and reach out for support when they needed it. So yeah, it would be fun to go back and see if we can get some data points. one of the things that's interesting about the way our coaches use our curriculum is that our coaches bring who they are to their coaching. So they have all kinds of backgrounds. Like I mentioned, some might come from an education background, some from counseling therapy, some from different kinds of life coaching, and when they do their coaching, we don't dictate how they work with children. Our curriculum is a tool in their toolbox. It guides. We have something called the story coaching process, because we have a coaching story, discussion questions, activities, and review sheets, that kind of thing, to kind of guide the development of the skills. But they can bring their own stuff into it. Some of our coaches are trained in EFT, some like to do breathing and meditation and yoga. So no two coaches really coach the same. So it's hard to get any kind of like quantitative response, but qualitative, we have all kinds of success stories on our website that share the journeys and the transformation that our children have experienced by going through this work with a coach.
Yeah, well, I can imagine, because just to be able to have those skills and like you said, in your toolbox, the tools to be able to do that is going to set them so far ahead of kids who don't have that advantage. And so even if, as you say, kids are not perfect, we as humans are not perfect, and they're not going to, they'll still have probably some issues that'll come along, but at least they will have that foundation. And it's just as important as being able to read and do math and everything else, because it's social skills are going to serve them when they're adults and when they're working in the world and raising families of their own. So,
well, absolutely, Gloria. And when you get this foundation of mindset skills and ability to be able to navigate those challenges in life, it supports children in all areas of their life, from the academic to the relationships with friends at home, siblings, to extracurricular activities and achieving their goals there. Absolutely, all areas of life. And that's why we talk about it being that missing link in children's education, because it is so needed across all areas of the life.
Yeah, for sure. Now, as you yourself are a coach, you're an entrepreneur, and I like to find out sometimes about you, personally, what's been maybe one of your challenges that you've had to work through over the years?
Wow, so many. Doing this for 12 years now. We've been certifying coaches for 10. Wow. My company now is very different from the one that I started. And even the certification program, that wasn't part of the original plan. So I think some of the biggest challenges, there's actually been two, and one is a lesson learned, which can support people who are on this, who are watching, who are entrepreneurs as well, especially if you have an online business. One was the technology challenge that we had about 3.5 years ago, and that was we were attacked by bots. And when the bots hit, it destroyed what's called our email reputation. It's called email deliverability as a whole. So if you ever all of a sudden clients are saying, I'm not getting your emails, or all of a sudden your business grinds down to a halt, check email deliverability, because it literally took us over 2 months to even figure out what was going on, because I'd never even heard of such a thing. And we'd been 100% online for about 7 years at that time. So we were able to get that turned around, but it was so painful, so painful, Gloria. I mean, it set us back. It was a hard hit from a timeline, from a people perspective, as far as the impact on us, and monetarily as well. But we were able to get things put in place, get safeguards in place as well. So that's one. And then the second challenge is really in figuring out the best way to build team, because the more you're serving and growing, you can't do it all by yourself. And so it's getting the right team members in place. But then that also balances, how you find your team and making sure that you're supporting that. And, COVID was hard on us. And what was really painful for us was we had the technology issue. We were just recovering from that, and then COVID hit. And so that was, another couple of years. But now that COVID's luckily looks like it's calming down, and we're learning to live with it as we do with the flu and other things. We're recovering from that. So now I'm looking at, okay, how do I build team now and better support our coaches, is just to support them to be even more successful within their lives. But one thing I have learned about being an entrepreneur, I mean, I think that being a parent and being an entrepreneur are two of the biggest personal development exercises you can ever go through in your life. I mean, it has just been something else. I had no idea it would be just, it's constant ability to be resilient and to bounce back and to just keep going. And our vision gets to be bigger than the circumstances we're dealing with, because we're out there blazing a new trail and things are going to pop up that we're not even aware of. So we've just got to learn how to take that punch, get back up right away, learn from it, adapt, and keep moving forward, because our vision, for me, I know that this vision's too important to let these big setbacks put the dream on the shelf.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to ask you to expand on that a little bit, because I know it's one thing to say, okay, yeah, you've got to learn to roll with the punches and be able to be resilient, but what does that look like in practical terms? So what are maybe, one thing that you've done that you can recommend other people can do?
Yeah, well, we actually have something that we call the bounce back formula, and I'd be happy to share that with you, just kind of help you understand a little bit about how to build resilience. Yeah, there's actually steps that we can take. We actually have 5 R's for building resilience as part of this bounce back formula. And the first thing is, Gloria, before we even talk about that, I think that the mistake that most people make, and I think I even made because in the beginning, is that we think that success is going to be kind of like this straight line arrow, going 45 degrees up. And of course, as entrepreneurs, you have the infamous hockey stick. Some people like to see that. But in reality, success is starting at one point, and it's a roller coaster, maybe up and down, and even backwards and loops, and, just a lot of shit moments, and just hopefully you're still trending up towards your goal. But I think that's the biggest mistake that some people make. And I think that what I found anyway, is when I'm in a more structured environment, like a corporate environment, where there was so much support and structure and things already working in place, it was a smoother line. But as an entrepreneur, especially building something brand new, man, the roller coasters have been there for sure. So that's one thing, is just to realize that life ain't a straight line, right? It's just not. Okay. All right. So I hope you're not an English teacher. I know you do copywriting, so you can cross off my ain't. All right. So what happens is when we experience a big setback, and let's just talk about the big stuff, because if we have the skills for the big stuff, we can handle those little bumps in the road. So whenever we have a big situation that happens, it hits the fan, right? The first thing we need to do is reset our brain, because what happens is when we have one of those X moments, is that our brain will shift from the frontal lobes, where critical reasoning occurs, into our amygdala, which is where fight or flight, and we're like, whoa, and we can't even think straight. Right. And it's why we can't even try to solve a problem when something has just happened. So the first thing we need to do is we need to calm ourselves down, reset our brain. And one thing that everybody can do is to just set your hand on your heart and take 5 really slow, deep breaths, because it's going to re-engage the parasympathetic nervous system, help calm us back down and get us back into our frontal lobes. And for some people, it's additional processing. It can be going for a workout, journaling, phone a friend, just something to really support you in moving through that. And by the way, it's okay to have a pity party. It's okay to be upset about something and just have a little hissy fit. The thing is just keep it short. Right. Keep it short so that you're processing it and then allowing yourself to move into our next steps there. And so the next thing you want to do is reframe what happened, because events in life are neutral, but we as human beings define them as either good or bad based on how we choose to think about them. So at Adventures in Wisdom, we teach kids to put on their power goggles. And what that means is to ask yourself, how can I look at this in a way that empowers me? And we actually have little fun kind of art project, creative activity for kids, is they can practice scenarios, putting on their victim goggles, where they're looking at a scenario from a kind of negative or victim standpoint, and then their power goggles, where they can practice looking at the same thing from an empowered standpoint. It could be something like failing a test, or losing a ball game, or just and for us, it could be like a failed launch. Right. So looking at that is the next thing we want to do. So because our thoughts are really shaping our experiences, right? And then the next thing we need to do is we need to kind of remap. What is it that we're wanting to do? So first is ask yourself and get connected with your why. Why is it we're going on this journey in the first place? And it's one of the reasons why vision boards can be so powerful, is because it helps us stay in touch with our why. And sometimes for people, when they take a big hit, they might do an evaluation, decide this isn't important to me anymore. But for most people, once they've had a chance to settle down, get back into their frontal lobes, it is still important. So we're needing to remap. It's like, okay, well, where do I go from now? Where do I go from here? How do I map my plan? And what we want to do is map out what that plan is. What are our next steps going to be? Because that gets our brain in action, and we start building what we call neural pathways within our brain to say, okay, this is how I'm going to get there. So it helps calm us down because we know what our action steps are going to be. And it also triggers another area in our brain that we call the reticular activating system, which is what we call our internal radar, to start looking for things at both a conscious and subconscious level to help us make our dreams come true and achieve our goals from there. Right. So, and then what we need to do is reprogram our brain. And this is, reprogramming our brain is, okay, we have this new marching orders. This is where we're wanting to go. We reprogram our brain with our positive self-talk, visualization, affirmations, so we can strengthen those neural pathways over and over again. Because, our vision gets to be bigger than our circumstances. We get to have our dreams. But the thing is we have to know what that path is. We have to program our brain to see ourselves as already achieving our goals of being successful. And then the last one is to just restart, be in action, because action builds confidence. So those are kind of the 5 R's there of stepping through. So you want to calm that brain down, get in touch with your why. Our dreams get to be bigger than our circumstances, remap what our path is going to be in action on it, building those neural pathways and creating confidence along the way.
I love it. Those are really great steps. And if you're listening to this, and you don't have a piece of paper and pen handy, go back later and listen to it again, because you're going to want to definitely take notes on that, because I think all of those steps are perfect and that really do work to help you to be resilient. So thank you for sharing that. I want to ask you one other thing, and because I'd love to ask our guests about this sometimes too, and I think this will be hopefully have something that will resonate or be able to enlighten our audience, is what's a commonly held belief, let's say about perhaps life coaching, that you passionately disagree with?
That life coaching is for grown-ups. We're missing the boat. We need to start when kids are young, for sure. But then, to take it beyond that about life coaching, it really is, I think it's important to understand where it fits within the mental health continuum, because a lot of times people don't quite understand what it is or how it can help. And when you look at mental health on a continuum, on one side you have mental wellness, on the other side you have mental illness. Now, counselors and therapists tend to focus on the mental illness side and kind of work their way towards the mental wellness, but they're assessing, diagnosing, and treating more serious mental health issues. Life coaches are really focusing on that mental wellness side. It's all about being proactive, and it's supporting people and learning how to be proactive in developing their self-esteem, their confidence, the resilience we were just talking about, self-leadership skills, and setting and achieving their goals. I mean, research shows that people who are goal-oriented tend to be mentally calmer and happier and have stronger mental health. Same thing with people who express gratitude. That's a mindset skill that we teach kids, is about gratitude. Same thing with visualization. It's a mindset skill. And I think that that when people understand that self-esteem is a skill, that self-confidence is a skill, that resilience is a skill that can be developed, that is so empowering. And that kids can develop these skills at a young age, I mean, it could change the world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's for sure. I love that. What are you curious about right now?
Oh, wow. I'm always curious about human behavior. I'm always curious about even, myself and how I respond to the world. I've just recently been reading Byron Katie's work, loving what is, which is really good. I wish I'd had it 3 years ago when the crap was hitting the fan and everything else I've navigated. And because it's so powerful. Because I'm not always the calm, perfect responder of all things that I would love to be. I still get triggered faster than what I would want to be. So for me, it really is curious about taking these skills even deeper into my own life. I mean, we're always in the work, and I've been doing personal development work literally for decades, and I still have work to do. So that really is what I'm curious about is, how do I do better at that? For sure.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's one thing I want to remind our audience, because I know this has come up in the past before, and it's a lesson that I've learned as well, is that we're never done.
We're never done, right?
we're always
Yeah.
and we really shouldn't want to be, because then I think that means we're ready to check out. And as long as we can continue to learn and to grow, and to know that there will always be opportunities sometimes for us to learn and grow, even if we don't necessarily want them.
Right.
Have now your resilient skills to be able to learn how to manage some of those things, because that's the one constant in life, is that it changes.
It does change. And I'm always telling myself, Renaye, put on your power goggles. Renaye, I mean, all the work that we use with kids, the skills we help them develop, they're mindset skills, they work for us too. And so, and it's nice to have, child-friendly terms that we can use on ourselves. It's like, Renaye, give yourself a gold heart. Which is, talking about the positive self-talk, treating myself with self-respect. It's a journey for sure.
If it would be interesting, just for giggles too, one day perhaps you might consider doing this, is like, offer the kids curriculum for adults, just to be able to give them a chance to go through it. Because so often, and again, this is speaking from experience, something that because of how I grew up, I was always very serious, and forgetting that there's a lot of joy in being a kid, and we
Right.
need to remember and tap back into some of that stuff. And so it'd be kind of fun experiment to see how adults would react to the stories and things, and as you say, handing out a gold star or something.
Yeah. Well, what's really interesting about that, I was one of those serious kids too, missed responsibility, and I still am. And working on bringing that joy and that fun and play, into life is like, that's another one of my challenges in life. But we're all kids inside of us, and especially when we're under stress, then we really revert back to our kind of automatic programming, which is why the work that we do is so important, and the work you do is so important as well. But some of our coaches do use our work with grown-ups.
Do they? Okay.
Yep, some of them do. But absolutely, because what happens, Gloria, what makes our work so unique is that we use stories written in a fable format to help people develop these skills, to help children develop these skills. Stories are such a powerful way to evoke change, because it engages multiple areas of the brain, from the logic to the emotional to the physiological. It enables children and us as adults to see situations that they might face through the characters and situations of the stories, so they don't feel threatened.
Yeah.
And the types of languaging that we use enables children to learn how to express what they're thinking, what they're feeling, in ways that aren't threatening. So, for example, two of the terms we use are called grungies and dragons. Grungies are how we're feeling, negative feelings, feeling off. Dragons are the negative thoughts. Our thoughts create our feelings. Most kids don't like to talk about being angry or being afraid or being scared, but they love talking about grungies. And then we talk about finding the dragons that are there, and then how we can, what we call slay the dragons through shifting our thinking, for wearing our power goggles. So it really is a very powerful way to support children in developing these skills, and our brains work the same way. We learn so much better through story than we do by reading or hearing facts.
Yeah, that's for sure. Because I remember, well, and this was just even learning and copywriting, that facts tell, but stories sell.
Right.
Um, but it's also because this is how we communicated before we had the written word is through oral tradition and just and stories. So this goes back thousands of years. So I think we're hardwired in to be able to respond to stories. So I love that. I love that some of the coaches are using those with adults as well. Um, is there anything else that I haven't asked you that I should have, perhaps, or any other last point you'd like to make regard to?
Wow, we've covered a lot here. We're just really working to spread the word that life coaching is transformational for children. And if anyone here is watching and you have children in your life, or someone have children in their lives who are really wanting to support children and being who they were meant to be in the world and seeing their magnificence and going for it in life and reaching their fullest potential, working with a coach could very well be something that can support their child in making those advances. And if you know someone who loves working with kids and maybe they're looking for a career change or even a side business, life coaching for kids could be a wonderful way for them to do that. And most of our coaches will start on a part-time basis and then move into a full-time basis. So just really helping us get the word out that this is out there. Our children have never needed these skills more. I mean, they've really been through a rough time, and supporting them in developing these resilient skills and really proactively developing mental wellness is so important. And we want parents to know that this is an option for their children, and that there are so many things we can support kids with long before counseling is ever needed.
Yeah.
And just helping parents know that life coaching for kids is part of the solution.
And someone, let's say a parent listening out there, can they go to your website and find like a coach? I mean, do you have a directory or something like that?
Yeah, absolutely. So our website's adventuresinwisdom.com. Up at the top, we have a tab that says for parents, and we have a directory there, but we also have a form called Connect with a Coach. So a parent can actually fill out the form and say, this situation, how old my child is, what I'm looking for in the coaching. And then our coaches who have availability can respond to that parent. And then the parent can talk directly with the coaches and choose someone who they think is going to be the best fit for their family.
Oh, perfect. Well, good. I'm glad I asked that question.
Yes, thank
Excellent.
you.
All right. So it's adventuresinwisdom.com.
Right.
And they'll be also able to get the free resource you mentioned earlier as well,
So
right?
up at the top is another tab that says free story. That's where anybody can download the free story and, download it today, have story time tonight. And then we have another tab that says be a coach if anyone's interested in learning more about our coaching program.
All right, excellent. Well, this has been very enlightening for me, and I'm sure our audience will benefit from it, and we'll be checking you out, and I'll make sure to have all of your information in the show notes as well. So thank you so much for spending some time with us today. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Gloria.
Oh, and I want to also thank all of you for listening and for watching. And if you're watching on YouTube, make sure you like and subscribe to our channel so you'll be able to hear future episodes. And I think that'll do it. So until next time, as always, I encourage you to go out and live fully, love deeply, and engage authentically.